Your backup plan is not a safety net, it is a chemical tranquilizer. The moment your brain detects a plan B, it automatically cuts power to your ambition by 40%. The modern world is engineered to keep you comfortable, padded, and harmless, ensuring you never access the desperate biological state required for total dominance. They sold you safety to ensure you never become dangerous. The protocol we are about to execute comes from the psychological doctrine of elite asymmetrical warfare units, operators who are dropped into hostile territory with no extraction plan. This data was removed from civilian leadership manuals because a population that operates without a safety net is a population that cannot be controlled by fear. When you trigger this neuro hack, the effect is immediate and violent. You do not motivate yourself, you corner yourself. You mechanically sever the neural pathways that allow for retreat. Your amygdala perceives the lack of an exit as a mortal threat and floods your system with aggressive adrenaline. The hesitation vanishes. The fear of failure is replaced by the terror of death. You stop negotiating with the work and start devouring it. But understand the binary outcome. Once you burn the boats, there is no return to the soft life. You will either conquer your reality, or you will crash. There is no middle ground for the desperate. The match is lit. But to survive the heat, you must first unlearn the lie that you are lazy. Chapter 1. Why your brain is bored with your goals. Your brain is not lazy, it is careful. It is an expensive organ that burns a lot of energy, and from an evolutionary point of view, wasting energy used to get people killed. For most of human history, there was no reason to give maximum effort unless survival or mating was at risk. Food, shelter, safety, status in the group, access to partners, those were life or death. Everything else was extra. Modern goals like starting a business, writing a book, building a brand, or getting in extreme shape feel important to you now, but your nervous system is still running ancient code. It asks a simple question in the background. If this fails, do we die, lose the group, or lose mating chances? If the answer feels like no, the brain quietly decides that full power is not necessary. Evolutionary psychologists like Tooby and Cosmead have argued that the human mind is a collection of survival programs, not a machine built for happiness or ambition. These programs care about conserving energy, avoiding unnecessary risk, and protecting social status. That means your brain saves its highest gear for when it truly believes there is no alternative. When your life is set up with multiple exits, your brain reads your goals as preferences, not requirements. It would be nice to build this business, but I still have my job. It would be great to get fit, but my health is okay. That quiet safety signal is exactly why you sit there, knowing what you should do, and still not doing it. Psychologist Yerkes and Dodson showed something uncomfortable over a century ago. Performance rises with arousal and stress up to a certain point, and then drops when stress becomes too high. This is the Yerkes-Dodson law. People usually hear this and jump straight to fear of burnout, as if everyone is living at the top of the curve, stressed to the limit. Most are not. Most people sit understimulated, half distracted, never putting themselves in conditions that are intense enough to wake up their full capacity. They hide behind comfort and call it balance, not realizing they are living below their own optimal stress zone. When nothing important is truly at stake, the brain never flips into high-performance mode. Your nervous system needs a reason to believe that failure has real consequences. Kahneman and Tversky showed in their work on loss aversion that people feel the pain of loss almost twice as strongly as the pleasure of an equal gain. Losing $50 hurts a lot more than finding $50 feels good. Your brain is wired to care more about what it might lose than what it might gain. Translate that to your goals. I might gain success, money, or freedom is weak compared to, if I fail, I lose my comfort, my image, my safety net. The second line activates deeper survival alarms. When your life is padded with backup plans, the potential loss never feels serious enough to trigger that response. You want the gain, but your nervous system does not feel the threat of loss. Look at the hidden tranquilizers in your life. A stable salary that hits your account no matter how half-hearted your effort is. a fallback career you do not respect but know you can return to, a degree that lets you slide back into a safe role if your project fails, parents who would let you move back in, a partner who will carry more of the load if you underperform. These are not evil, they are comfortable. They are also signals to your brain that nothing is truly on the line, so your goal is filed under optional. When something is optional, procrastination is not a bug, it is a logical response. Why burn energy, take risk, and face pain for something that can be postponed without immediate cost? This is why so many people say they want more, but act like they do not care. Their nervous system has done the math. It sees that life will stay acceptable even if nothing changes, so it does not allocate maximum focus, creativity, or effort. You sit and blame your character. I am lazy, I lack discipline, I am not motivated enough. That story is comforting, because it keeps you from touching the real issue. The real issue is that your brain does not believe your goal is required for survival, status, or deep belonging. It believes it is a bonus. Bonuses do not get emergency-level resources. There is a reason your brain used to push harder. When ancestors faced real danger, like a predator, a rival tribe, or hunger, survival hormones flooded their system. Attention sharpened. Time felt slower. Alternative paths were scanned faster. Every bit of mental power came online. That is what your brain can do. That is still in you. But it does not show up in modern life, because your environment tells it. You are safe enough. Your rent is paid. There is food in the fridge. Social media gives tiny hits of social presence. Comfort tricks your system into thinking that pushing hard is wasteful. So you sit in this dead zone, not suffering enough to change, not fulfilled enough to relax. You watch people who seem naturally driven and assume they are different species. They are not. Many of them have something you lack, a structure that removed their exits. Debt that must be paid, public promises they cannot break, a failed safety net that forced them into action. Their brains are not better than yours. Their situation is harsher. Their nervous system knows that quitting is not safe, so it releases more energy. That is the hidden edge. The central claim is blunt. You do not lack motivation. Your nervous system simply does not believe your goal is a survival-level priority yet. As long as your life is padded with extra cushions and exits, your brain will keep your ambition in hobby mode. It will give just enough attention to think about the goal, but not enough to move through pain for it. Until your brain feels that not changing is dangerous, your goals will always feel heavy and far away. To change that, you have to do something most people never dare to do. You have to start removing your exits on purpose. You have just realized that your safety net is strangling you. Most people will instinctively click away right now to protect their comfort. You are still here. That means you are willing to risk everything. Signal your intent to cut the cord. Subscribe now. Let's destroy the exit. Chapter 2: The Cortés Myth and the real neuromechanism behind No Way Back. There is a story people love to repeat about Hernan Cortés. The tale goes that when he arrived in the New World with his men, he ordered the ships to be burned so there was no way to retreat. Historians argue about how accurate that is, and how much of it is legend, but the story has survived because it hits a part of the human mind that understands something simple and brutal. When there is no way back, people fight differently. The image of soldiers watching their only exit disappear taps straight into the logic of the nervous system: survive or die trying. That is the real lesson, not the history, but the psychology. Burning the ships is a symbol of forced commitment. In normal life, commitment is soft. People try something. They keep side options open. They say they are all in, but they hold on to little escape doors. Research on commitment and sunk cost by psychologists like Hal Arks and Peter Ayton shows that people push harder when they feel heavily invested. Money, time, reputation already spent makes the brain say we cannot walk away now. This can look irrational from the outside, but it is the same ancient logic again. When the cost of quitting is high, persistence goes up. Your brain uses past investment as a signal of future necessity. If you cut off your own retreat, you create what that Cortés story represents, a psychological state of no return. There is only forward. That is not romantic. It is a way to force your brain to reclassify the situation from interesting challenge to survival problem. The stakes rise, and so does the quality of your attention. You stop daydreaming about alternatives because there are none. Bruce McEwen's work on stress shows why this matters on a biological level. Short bursts of high stress can sharpen your abilities. Acute stress, when it is time-limited and linked to a clear challenge, floods you with hormones like norepinephrine and cortisol. In small controlled doses, they improve alertness, memory encoding, and decision speed. Your brain starts scanning more options, predicting threats, and spotting patterns faster. This is the survival problem-solving mode. In that state, you suddenly see moves you missed before, because failure feels dangerous instead of just disappointing. There is another layer that most people never notice. Robert Eisenberger's work on learned industriousness suggests that when effort repeatedly leads to meaningful rewards, the brain learns that high effort is valuable. It starts to see hard work as something that often produces outcomes worth the pain. Burning the boats, in a smart way, forces you into repeated cycles where intense effort is not optional. You work hard because you must. If you set it up well, that effort brings results, which then teaches your brain a new rule. When things are intense and exits are gone, it is worth going all out. Over time, high effort becomes less scary and more automatic. This is why Burn the Boats is not about drama for its own sake. It is about deliberately manipulating how your brain calculates commitment, loss, and stress. When all exits are left open, your mind quietly spreads its attention across many paths. Plenty of maybes, no firm line in the sand. When you cut those exits, your brain is cornered. The cost of failure suddenly feels real. Loss aversion kicks in. You are no longer moving solely for the chance of gain. You are moving to avoid a loss that your nervous system believes will hurt. People often misuse this concept. They throw away opportunities, quit jobs on impulse, or make grand gestures without preparation, then crash under stress that their system is not ready to handle. That is not strategy. That is self-destruction. The point is not to imitate Cortés as a historical figure. The point is to understand the mechanism that story describes. When there is no safe fallback, the brain reassigns resources. It pays more attention, puts more weight on the current goal, and treats setbacks as threats to be overcome, not as signs to give up. So when you hear burn the boats, ignore the motivational posters and focus on the neuro mechanism. Remove easy exits, create real stakes, trigger sunk cost and commitment, and let acute stress flip you into survival mode. In that zone, your mind stops treating your dream like a hobby. It treats it like oxygen. The trick is to enter that state by design, not by accident, in a way that pushes your system hard without breaking it. That is where strategy comes in. Chapter 3. Plan B. The tranquilizer. You don't notice you're taking. Plan B sounds smart. It sounds mature, responsible, careful. Every parent, teacher, and manager loves that phrase. Have a backup. Keep your options open. Do not risk too much. On the surface, this looks wise. Under the surface, it acts like a sedative. The moment your brain knows that you will be fine even if the main plan fails, it lowers the stakes. If failure does not seriously hurt, why burn maximum energy? From an evolutionary lens, that choice is logical. Energy must be saved for threats that matter. Your nervous system still thinks like a survival machine. If it senses that there is food, shelter, and basic security without brutal effort, it holds back. Plan B tells your brain exactly that. Survival is covered. This leads straight into a mental pattern where the main goal is important in theory, but not urgent in practice. You talk about it, you think about it. But when it is time to act, the urgency is missing. That missing urgency is not laziness. It is the conservation of energy program doing its job. Goal research by Gallwitzer and Sheeran shows something key here. Strong goal commitment requires a sense of exclusivity. When there are many active paths, the brain does not assign full priority to any of them. This is called goal shielding. A central goal needs protection from competing motives to get done. But when you maintain strong backup paths, your central goal never becomes exclusive. It always has to compete with safer choices. The result is that you float between them, never fully cutting away the old and never fully committing to the new. Anxiety research adds another piece. Tsiolkovsky and others have studied what are called safety behaviors. These are small habits that anxious people use to feel safer, like carrying certain objects, avoiding eye contact, or staying close to exits. They seem helpful, but they stop the person from fully entering the feared situation and learning that they can survive it without the crutch. The fear stays. Transfer that idea to ambition. Your plan B is a safety behavior. You are afraid of poverty, embarrassment, or failure, so you keep a job you hate, a career path you dislike, a relationship that does not help you grow, just so you do not feel exposed. The side effect is that you never let your nervous system face real risk and adapt. Modern life is filled with these quiet safety nets. Staying in a dull, stable job while telling yourself you are building the business on the side. Holding on to a degree you never use because it is good to have something to fall back on. Keeping friends or partners who drain you because at least you are not alone. Hoarding subscription comforts, gadgets, habits that make an unfulfilling life feel just good enough to tolerate. Each of these is a vote for safety over necessity. Each one tells your brain, we have exits, no need to go all in. This creates a strange state in your nervous system. You are not threatened enough to evolve, and not free enough to commit. You live in chronic low arousal limbo. There is a background hum of dissatisfaction, but not a sharp stab of danger. You scroll, you plan, you consume content about success, but you do not actually cut off the old branch. Underneath, your brain has already decided failure is acceptable, so it never releases the full focus and aggression you keep waiting to feel. Notice how Plan B shows up in your language. If this does not work, I can always... That sentence looks harmless. In your brain, it is a permission slip. It gives you a way out before you have even started. So when things get hard, when boredom and fear show up, your mind does not ask, how do we solve this? It asks, do I really need this? I could always go back. That shift in question is the slow death of your ambition. Your nervous system picks the lower threat path because that is what it was built to do. The hardest truth is this: as long as your plan B feels comfortable, your plan A will never feel necessary. And if it does not feel necessary, you will not access your full capacity. You will keep blaming surface problems like time management, focus, or discipline. Underneath, you are tranquilized by the knowledge that you can fail and still be fine. The sedative is not in a pill, it sits in your backup plan. Chapter 4. Designing the Burn. How to corner your own brain without destroying it. Burning the boats does not mean acting stupid. It means learning how much pressure your system needs to wake up, and then building that pressure on purpose. The Yerkes-Dodson law is your map here. Too little stress, and you stay lazy and unfocused. Too much, and you shut down, get sick, or sabotage yourself. The goal is what you can call calculated constraint. You design conditions where failure would feel painful enough to scare you, but not catastrophic enough to break you. Think of 3 levers you can pull: financial risk, social risk, and temporal risk. Financial risk means reducing buffers that protect your comfort, but not your survival. For example, choosing to leave a comfortable job only after you have a basic savings buffer, but before your side project becomes successful, or cutting lifestyle expenses so that you are forced to make more from your main goal, not less. When used with care, money pressure activates loss aversion. You know that if you do not act, you actually lose comfort you already had. That is motivation your ancient brain respects. Social risk uses your fear of judgment. Leary's sociometer theory says that self-esteem is tied to how accepted you feel by the group. Public commitment takes advantage of this. When you tell people you trust that you will launch a product by a specific date, change careers, or hit a certain milestone, you put your reputation at stake. You may hate that feeling, but that is the point. You are wiring your nervous system to believe, if I do not act, I lose status. Cialdini's work on consistency shows that people strongly feel the urge to act in line with what they said publicly. You can turn that instinct into a tool. Temporal risk is about time pressure. Vague deadlines do nothing. Someday tells your brain that no immediate action is required. Implementation intention research by Peter Gallwitzer shows that clear, time-bound plans massively increase follow-through. When you say, on this date, by this time, this will be done, and people will see it, you create a hard wall in time. Your brain cannot push it forward without also imagining the social and personal cost of breaking that line. The smart move is not a single dramatic leap, but layered burning. First, you create a real public deadline for a specific action. Announce that you will publish the first version of your product, quit a certain client, or sign up for an event by a clear date. That alone starts the pressure. Next, you begin to shift your environment in a way that removes some comfort. Reduce your hours at the job, or stop taking on new safe work that eats your time. This shrinks your safety net, but does not cut it completely. Finally, you adjust your spending so that maintaining your current lifestyle now depends on your main goal moving forward. Each layer tightens the corner you are in, but because you are doing it step by step, your system has time to adapt instead of collapsing. You must also respect biology. Stress research from Sapolsky and McEwen shows that chronic, endless stress without recovery damages the body and brain. If you are going to corner yourself, you must build in rules that protect your minimum health. Sleep is non-negotiable. Social support is not a luxury. It is a buffer that stops stress from turning toxic. A minimal savings buffer for true emergencies, like medical or housing crises, is rational. Burning the boats means cutting exits that protect comfort, not exits that protect survival. Before you start cutting exits, run a psychological checklist. Are you already on the edge with anxiety or depression? Is your sleep wrecked? Your concentration gone? Your body sending warning signs? If yes, you are already on the wrong side of the stress curve. Burning more boats from that state is not bravery. It is self-sabotage. On the other hand, if you are comfortable, bored, numbed by routine, and your main feeling is low-grade regret, you are probably understressed. You have room to increase the pressure. Calculated constraint means you take responsibility for the dials. You choose where to add risk instead of letting life hit you at random. You decide which comforts to sacrifice, and on what timeline. Done right, this approach corners your brain into treating your goal as non-optional. It cannot say I will be fine either way anymore, because you have designed conditions where inaction has real, visible costs. That is when the deeper parts of your mind stop waiting and start working. Not because a quote inspired you, but because you left yourself no other way out that you respect. Chapter 5. Panic as fuel. Turning anxiety into execution. When you start burning boats, panic will show up. Not maybe, it will. Racing heart, tight chest, restless thoughts, the urge to escape. That is your nervous system dumping norepinephrine and cortisol into your body. Sapolsky and McEwen describe how these chemicals increase vigilance and narrow attention. Your brain starts scanning for danger and solutions faster. On the surface, it feels horrible. Inside, it is your body getting ready to act. The difference between people who freeze and people who move under pressure is not that they feel different chemicals, it is how they interpret them. Research by James Gross on cognitive reappraisal shows that when people tell themselves that the physical signs of stress are signs of readiness instead of signs of doom, their performance improves. The heart still beats fast. The hands may still sweat, but the story changes from, I am freaking out, I cannot handle this, to my body is gearing up, time to use this. That mental shift changes behavior. You can train yourself to treat panic like a starting gun instead of a cage. The way to do it is not by motivational self-talk, but by a fixed action ritual. Decide in advance what you will do the moment anxiety spikes. For example, the instant you feel that rush, you grab a notebook and do a 10-minute brain dump of every problem and task on your mind. Then you force yourself to pick a single priority that would move your situation forward the most. Then you start a 25-minute sprint where you only work on that. No messages, no new decisions, just execution. This kind of ritual turns fear into a cue. Panic appears, and instead of spiraling, you drop into a routine you already decided. Over time, your brain starts to associate the stress surge with action instead of avoidance. That is the opposite of what normal life conditions you to do. Most people feel stress, distract themselves, then their brain learns that panic leads to escape. Your goal is to teach your system that panic leads to progress. That is how anxiety becomes fuel, not a chain. Approach and avoidance goals matter here. Research by Elliott and Church shows that people perform better when goals are framed as moving towards something they value, not just away from something they fear. If your entire burn the boat setup is built around terror of failure, you may move fast at first, then burn out. The pressure feels like running from a predator with no sense of where you are going. You need a strong pull as well as a push. That means keeping a clear, vivid image of what you are building toward. Not a vague fantasy, but a concrete outcome, the lifestyle, schedule, impact, or identity you are choosing. So when the stress hits, you are not just thinking, "I must not fail." You are also thinking, "This is the price of becoming the person who lives that life." The brain can tolerate more pain when it is linked to meaning. Without meaning, stress becomes despair. You also have to learn your own tipping point. Chapter 6: Irreversible Identity. Tactics are temporary. Identity is not. If you use this strategy only as a stunt, you will get short bursts of effort and then slide back into safety whenever you can. To change that, you have to change how you see yourself. Self-perception theory by Daryl Bem says that people infer who they are by watching what they do. If you repeatedly put yourself in situations with no easy exits and still move forward, your brain starts building a new story. I am the type of person who finishes even when escape would be easier. That story is dangerous in a good way. It starts to control your future behavior. Carol Dweck's work on mindset is important here, but not in the way it is usually sold. Under pressure, a fixed mindset turns difficulty into proof of personal failure. If this is hard, it means I am not capable. That belief will make any boat-burning strategy collapse into panic and shame. A growth mindset under pressure sounds more like, "This is training. The difficulty is part of building the capacity I do not have yet." When you cut your exits, setbacks will feel sharper. You will want to read them as signs that you made a mistake. You must instead train yourself to read them as signals that you are in the right zone, where you are actually stretching. Identity-based habits, discussed by people like BJ Fogg and James Clear, give you a method to stabilize after you cut your exits. Big gestures like quitting a job or making a public commitment mean nothing if your daily actions do not match. Once you have raised the stakes, you install small, non-negotiable routines that line up with the identity you are claiming. Daily deep work on the core project, at a set time. A weekly review of progress where you confront numbers, not feelings. A rule that every day ends with one concrete action that moves the main goal forward, no matter how small. These habits become the rails that carry you when motivation swings. There is a dark side. Workaholism and perfectionism research shows what happens when people treat every task like a burned boat scenario. They start to live in permanent high-threat mode. No rest, no off switch. Every project framed as existential. That destroys health and relationships, and eventually ruins performance. This strategy is not meant for everything. It is for decisive moves that change your trajectory. Career shifts, major creative work, high-stakes ventures. If you apply no exits to every area all the time, you are not being strategic. You are turning your life into a war zone for no reason. So you select carefully. You decide which goals are worth burning boats for, and which are fine to keep at a lower level of intensity. You accept that most of your life can and should have safety nets. But for the few moves that will define what kind of life you live, you do not stay half in. You pick them, you raise the stakes, and you let your identity harden around being the person who does not run when it gets real. Over time, something interesting happens. You stop needing as many external tricks. After a few cycles of calculated burns and forced execution, your nervous system becomes used to higher stakes. The fear is still there, but it stops shocking you. You have evidence that you can survive without exits. That evidence changes what you consider normal. Where other people panic, you see familiar territory. This is the quiet advantage. While most people are still bargaining with their comfort, trying to get huge results without real risk, you will already have trained yourself to act when others freeze. You will not be fearless. You will be used to doing important things while afraid. That is what burning the boats, done rarely and intelligently, really gives you. Not a story about Cortés, not a slogan, but a nervous system that knows how to operate when there is no way back, and a life built on decisions you did not run away from. There is a fatal side effect to the protocol you just learned. When you cut off your exits, your biology does not celebrate. It panics. Right now, your amygdala is about to flood your system with high-voltage terror. Your hands will shake. Your heart will hammer. If you do not know how to handle this surge, you will not work harder. You will freeze. You will crash. You need to hack the signal immediately. Biologically, anxiety and excitement are the exact same electrical current. The only difference is the switch in your brain. In the next briefing, I will teach you the adrenaline override, how to manually flip that switch and turn your terror into infinite fuel. Do not let the panic waste you. Weaponize it. Click the video on the screen now to turn anxiety into excitement.